Hi, and welcome back to the second hour of Focal Point on AFR Talk. I want to start this second hour with a couple of sound bites. Rob, if we could drop down to clip 12 and 13 and maybe grab those to start with, the two John Kerry clips, and then clip 13 is Marco Rubio sparring with John Kerry. Let's grab those, and then I also want to grab, I've got a Newt Gingrich clip somewhere in here. Yeah, down on clip 21. I want to see if we can get to that clip in this segment. So we'll do the two John Kerrys and then the Newt Gingrich clip 21. Now, the reason I want to play this, John Kerry, as you're aware, is being has been nominated by President Obama to be the next Secretary of State to replace Hillary Clinton. And there's a reason why he's being picked and a reason why Chuck Hagel is being picked for Secretary of Defense, and that is because they share President Obama's vision for the world. Now, President Obama's vision for the world is that the United States has been an oppressor. The United States has been an evil colonizer. The United States is largely responsible for all of the evil, all of the poverty, all of the misery, all of the slavery, all of the oppression in the world. That's his view of the United States. You know, and according to Dinesh D'Souza, this hatred of the West as a colonial oppressor goes all the way back to his father. His father nurtured in him a hatred. His father had a hatred for white colonial powers, UK in the case of Kenya. Now, the United States hasn't colonized anything. I mean, we haven't colonized anything. We go in and we use our power to neutralize the threat to our nation, and then we hand the keys to the country back to the people. We neutralized Japan. We gave them back their country. We gave them the keys to their country. We helped them write a constitution. We gave them their freedom back. We neutralized Nazi Germany. What do? We give the keys to the kingdom back to the German people. We're not a colonial power. We have liberated and set free more people in our history, 200-plus year history, than any other nation in the history of civilization. But this is not how Barack Obama looks at the United States. In his view, the United States has not been the greatest force for good and truth and light and progress in human history, which is the case. That's the truth of it. It has been the greatest force for evil and darkness and oppression and slavery. So you listen to John Kerry, you know, and President Obama believes that the United States military is too big for its own britches. The United States military needs to be cut down to size, just like the United States needs to be trimmed back and cut down to size. That's why President Obama is actually fine with all of the sequestration cuts that are going to hit the military. I think that's why he's been a little bit sanguine about these sequestration cuts, because 42% of the impact is going to be felt by the military. Only 18% of those cuts is going to be felt in entitlement programs. If the cut in entitlement programs is any deeper, he'd be hollering. But because the primary blow is going to land on the military, he's just fine with it. So let's listen to John Kerry. And when you listen to what he says here, it ought to, it ought to just remind us of what we all know, that John Kerry as Secretary of State is a really, really bad idea. And we got to hope that there are a sufficient number of Republican senators to block his nomination. Let's listen.
It's also imperative that in implementing President Obama's vision for the world, as he ends more than a decade of war, that we join together to augment our message to the world. President Obama and every one of us here knows that American foreign policy is not defined by drones and deployments alone. We cannot allow the extraordinary good that we do to save and change lives to be eclipsed entirely by the role that we have had to play since September 11th, a role that was thrust upon us.
Now, what I want you to observe here, this is really insidious, and it's dark, because what John Kerry does is he contrasts the extraordinary good that we have done to save and change lives to what we've done since 9/11. In other words, since 9/11, the United States has not done extraordinarily good things to save and change lives. It's been a source of evil and oppression and darkness. And it's threatening to eclipse all of the good that we have done. So you can see, I mean, he just said it with his own words before the Senate committee, that he shares President Obama's view. Prior to 2001, in John Kerry's view, the United States had done extraordinary good. Now, we can't let that, he says, we can't let all the good that we did prior to 2001, 9/11, we can't let that be eclipsed by everything that we've had to do since 9/11. So once again, what's happened in the last 11 years as far as John Kerry and Barack Obama is concerned is an unmitigated evil, as if we had no right to defend the safety and security of our own people, protect their lives, as secure justice against those that took innocent American lives. So when he talks about implementing President Obama's vision for the world and augmenting the message to the world, well, the message to the world is America's evil. We're sorry that we're Americans. We're sorry for what we've done in the history of the world. That's John Kerry as our next Secretary of State. Now, Marco Rubio, clip 13, Marco Rubio and John Kerry got into a little bit of a tussle over President Obama's foreign policy failures. Here's how that went.
North Korea today announced that they're developing a weapon that can reach the United States of America. And lest anybody accuse me of being overly partisan here, I think the Bush administration was wrong to remove North Korea from the list of state sponsors of terrorism, and I hope we'll reverse that. And finally, China and the territorial conflicts that are going on in Southeast Asia and throughout the region. China's being increasingly aggressive about their territorial claims, and their neighbors are looking to the United States and U.S. leadership as a counterbalance. We talk about, and I think, I congratulate the president for talking about pivoting to Asia, but if this sequester goes through, what are we going to pivot with? And so these are the fundamental issues that we face, and I guess my question to you is, as you sit with the president and as part of his cabinet help him form a vision for the world and for the U.S.'s role in the world over the next few years, what advice are you going to give him in terms of what the U.S.'s role should be and what how that should be reflected in our foreign policy?
Well, Senator, that's obviously a very broad and comprehensive question. I appreciate.
You have 2 minutes to answer it.
Well, I mean, I could say to you, look, let's sit down and talk about it, and we'll get together and go through it. But let me just give you, I want to do that, but let me say a few things to you about this.
So John Kerry getting pushed into the corner by Marco Rubio. We didn't play the response, but not a very effective response. Now, one issue, Newt Gingrich brings this up, clip 21. Let's play this very quickly. He says there's a problem with Hagel and John Kerry both, and that is they do not recognize the threat of Islam. Let's listen.
Neither of them nor the president have a positive vision of how you're going to deal with a worldwide virus that is increasingly destabilizing the planet. And that's what's happening from Pakistan through North Africa to Syria, and I think potentially in Europe and the United States.
So he says, look, we've got this worldwide virus, and that is devout Islam. It's fundamentalist Islam. It's Islam as it exists. That's a virus. It's a worldwide virus, and it threatens freedom all around the world. We're allowing it onto our shores. President Morsi of Egypt, we're giving this guy F-16s and Abram tanks. He's out there saying Jews are descendants of apes and pigs, just quoting Muhammad. That's what Muhammad said. Jews are apes and pigs. Do we give F-16s to somebody like that? I don't think so.